Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, TJ Trimboli, and with me, as always, is my co-host, famed leader of the Magi, Mr. James O'Reilly.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going. And each week we run down a movie from my 1,000 movies that we've seen in theaters, and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. And we have another whopper of a movie on deck tonight. Jim, what are we watching?
The absolute powerhouse that is The Mummy Returns.
That's right. We are watching the 2001 action adventure film, The Mummy Returns, written and directed by Stephen Sommers and starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. We go right to my lovely The Mummy Ultimate Trilogy 4K collection to get this humdinger of a log line for The Mummy
Oh,
Returns. And it
wow.
is as follows. An ancient terror is unleashed when the cursed mummy is resurrected again, along with a force even more powerful, the Scorpion King. The fate of all mankind depends on Rick O'Connell and his wife to save the world from unspeakable evil. How dare you disrespect Rachel Weisz by just saying his wife?
Wow.
Not
Did
even
they put Rachel Weisz's name?
so she's in parentheses as the for the character, but Brendan
I see.
Fraser gets Rick O'Connell and his wife. Why not Rick O'Connell and his wife, comma Evie, comma to save the world from unspeakable evil?
Yeah, or even better, couple Rick and Evie O'Connell.
There you go, right there.
Or maybe even start with Evie and Rick. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
Let's
ways to
let's
play
get
it
real
there.
progressive.
Yeah, a lot of ways to play it there that doesn't absolute disrespect the phenom that is Rachel Weisz from this movie. But as always, before we love to dive into these movies, we love to take and turn back the clock to our memories of seeing these movies when they first were released. Jim, do you have a memory of this movie from when it was released back in '01?
My biggest memory is probably my excitement leading up to it because I did love the first Mummy movie and I was a big wrestling fan when I was a kid, which obviously The Rock stars in this movie, which to a kid my age was a big deal in 2001. So I remember being really excited, and I definitely saw this in theaters, and I was not disappointed. Maybe a little bit about certain things, but for the most part, I loved this movie when I was a kid.
Think I can echo those sentiments entirely, especially for our generation. There, everyone at that point was a wrestling fan, much like we talked about a few episodes ago, like everyone being a Pokemon fan in like the late '90s. Growing up in the late '90s, and you were a boy for the most part, you were a wrestling fan. Like you fucking loved the WWF, WCW. So to get The Rock in a movie, this was a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, his debut movie.
Yeah, his debut movie, and what a performance it was. I also was a huge fan, waiting for this movie to come out. The first Mummy movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. That's one of those movies that I can watch, love it. It could end. I could start it over again immediately afterwards and enjoy it the exact same way. That's how enjoyable and how much I can rewatch that movie over and over and over again. So I was super excited when this movie was coming out. This is actually the first movie that my parents ever let me go to alone with a friend. Not like them having to be in the theater watching, like, or anything. They just dropped me and a friend off and they were like, we'll see you in 2 hours. So this was a big experience for me because not only was I getting to see a sequel to a movie that I loved, not only was I getting The Rock in a movie for the first time, but the parents were trusting enough to leave me alone for 2 hours at the movie theaters with my friend to see The Mummy Return. So this was a quintessential moment in young TJ's life,
Yeah, that's a big memory. I can tell you what mine was.
which was
It was a little bit later. I was a bit more of a sheltered kid. My first movie that I went to go see just with friends was Malibu's Most Wanted.
boy,
The
oh
Jamie
boy.
Kennedy spectacular Malibu's Most Wanted.
That is quite a first movie to be able to go see without your parents. Probably your parents probably saw the trailer for that and they were like, "Let the boy go alone. I'm not watching that."
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they were very interested in it. I don't. As a matter of fact, I don't think anybody was very interested in it besides me.
Which I mean, fair. That is that I could see, that's a movie I could see being up your alley that you could enjoy.
I still love it, dude.
I know, I'm sure you do. All right, Jim, hit
I,
me with some gloriousness. This is The Rock's first movie,
yeah,
and what a first.
here's his first line in the movie.
You think he needed an acting coach to nail that?
Not at all, dude. He's a natural. Have you
That's
said you watched wrestling? Do you remember him on wrestling? He was great.
Oh, absolutely. That was probably a one take performance. Like he probably said that they were like, print, cut, check the gate, let's go.
Easily one take. And you know what else? His second line even better. Just the absolute raw power The
I
Rock
can
brings to the screen.
I can feel the guttural pain that's inside him when that moment happens. It's an absolute stellar debut.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all he says in the movie. There's
That's it. Those are his only two
there's
lines the entire movie.
yeah, his only. I mean, he may we may get into some more lines that he had toward the end later, but they were very very produced. Let me put it that way. So I wanted to stick with his natural acting for these first two lines, and really only two lines in my book.
Natural raw talent. And honestly, those were probably the only days that he was actually on set too. Because later on, there's no way he was on set doing motion capture as the Scorpion hybrid, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, and we talked about this is probably he just filmed this while they were filming The Scorpion King, right? And then they were like, you know what? Let's just toss this in the beginning of this.
It's honestly entirely possible.
Yeah, and then you just obviously the voiceover you do for this movie, but the actual scenes of The Rock, you know?
And what a voiceover that is in the opening to really set that stage.
Yeah, totally. But anyway, yes, that's. I just wanted to play my Rock clips, okay?
He gave you the rock clips. He gave you the absolute stellar debut performance. But now, Jim, give me what I so desire. You got what you desired. I'd like what I desired. Hit that playback. I want to dive into those sweet, juicy box office numbers.
Numbers, dates, numbers, numbers, dates, hooray. Dates, numbers. Show me the money.
That's right. The Mummy Returns is definitely going to show you the money because this movie had an absolute stellar performance. Jim, run me down some box office numbers.
Yeah, so it opens the weekend of May 4th, which basically the kickoff of the summer blockbusters at this point. I don't know, that's probably a little bit before Memorial Day weekend, right?
You're asking is May 4th before Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. When's Memorial Day weekend?
Say May 4th is way before Memorial Day week.
All right,
The end of
there
May.
you go. Oh, yeah, right. So, yeah. So
Oy.
May 4th, but it's like the start of the summer blockbuster season, right? And it opens number 1 to 68.1 million.
That is a huge number. That number, Jim, is good enough to put The Mummy Returns as the second highest grossing opening weekend of all time, right behind The Lost World, which sat with 72.1.
Wow. Yeah, and that was one of that when that came out, that was the biggest opening weekend ever, right?
Yeah, which
So that's
it's
The Mummy is right up there with the all-time list at this point.
which is insane because I did not think that that would have been the case looking at this movie when it came out. Like I figured it did well, but I didn't realize how big of a movie the first one was when it came out that the second one put up such a stellar opening.
Yeah, and part of it, I mean, part of it is that, you know, you're about to get into the summer movie season, but you're not quite there yet. So there's not a lot of competition that comes out with it this week.
And I feel like back then too, your winter and March and April are very empty compared to how you see it today. Because today there's so much stuff coming out that you tend to see more blockbusters and big movies coming out in like March and April at times. Whereas back then, you really got low budget to mid budget movies until that summer movie season kicked off. So people were probably, itching for a big blockbuster at this point. So when this
Yeah, I
movie comes
mean,
around,
this is
Everyone's going to
probably
the cinema.
the first blockbuster of the year. Yeah, because I mean, you're looking at
Totally.
what put it into some perspective, right? In second place is a movie called Driven with 6 million.
Is that the
Not
Sylvester
even as
Stallone racing movie?
it is. Yeah, it's the one where he's like an Indy car, right? Is it that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Which I saw that movie. Not great.
Like that's the that was your
It wasn't as
competition.
big a deal as The Mummy, right? And it's not even its opening week. That's week 2 of Driven. In third is Bridget Jones's Diary in its fourth week. In fourth, Spy Kids in its sixth week. So there's like no competition here,
Yeah.
right? It's
It's literally
cleaning
not.
up. And yeah, so it wins its opening weekend, and then it goes on a bit of a run here. In its second week, it beats out A Knight's Tale, the opening weekend of A Knight's Tale.
Dude, great movie.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's next on the list. I hope so. I hope that's what
It
we're doing next week.
Spoiler alert. It's not
Oh, that might be the front runner for my
for
pickiness
your
this
next
time
pick.
around. Yeah, but anyway, so it beats out A Knight's Tale in its opening week. Mummy pulls in 33.7 in its second week. So there's a bit of a drop there, but 50% isn't terrible, especially when your opening is that strong. And then it gets knocked out of first in week 3. Do you want to take a guess at what beats it? I'll give you a hint. It's an animated, what turns into a franchise.
I know what it is because the spoiler alert here. Actually, I won't do the spoiler alert, but I know what movie it is. Simply
Oh
because
no, I know what it is too now because it's what we're gonna do next. Dang it.
it's Shrek, right?
Yeah, it's Shrek. Shrek takes the top spot in The Mummy Returns' his third week.
Now you can't
Uh,
guess later.
yeah, and I guess we'll give you Shrek's opening weekend now, or should we just say The Mummy comes in
No,
second with
save that.
20.4 million?
Yeah, just save it. But yeah, but that's still second with 20.4, still good.
Yeah, and it's another respectable drop, and it's another respectable drop as you're seeing more of that summer competition come out.
All right, so it spends 2 weekends at
Yeah,
number
so
one.
our
So that's
first place run is over, and it's gonna stay in the top 10 through weekend 7.
so it spends about 7 weeks, which is that's about the average that you see from movies, spending 7 weeks in the top 10, right around there. That's good enough to
Yeah,
put it with The Perfect Storm and Armageddon. Both also stuck around for like 7 weeks. So we're getting like a median average of movies that seem to extend to stick around 7, 8, 6 weeks. It seems to be like that median average there. So that's respectable.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a good run. And just to get some totals out here, it finishes with 202 million domestic, 241.2 million international for a worldwide total of 443.2 million.
143.2 million. That is solid. And that is good enough to put it in the sixth spot, right behind Gladiator, which made 503, and just ahead of last week's movie, Castaway, which did 429.6.
Yeah, and I mean at this point
Is
that's a success, right?
that no, that it absolutely is a success. I mean, especially when you look at it was an only 98 million budget, 440 million is definitely huge. It is interesting though that for a movie that opened to the second biggest opening of all time, couldn't cruise past 500 million.
500 feels like a pretty high benchmark.
Yes, but I mean, you look at Lost World open to the biggest opening weekend of all time, and it cruised to almost 700. So just an
Yeah.
interesting thing to note that I would have thought it would have at least topped 500 million.
Yeah, yeah, maybe didn't have quite the legs that you thought it might.
Yeah, so like the legs kind of died out a little bit towards the end there, but still, huge opening weekend, huge run at the box office. This movie, obviously for them, was a success. I wonder if the critical reception though hurt it, and that's why we didn't see a sequel to this movie for a good while, because I think the first Mummy movie came out, I think it was like 1999. 2 years
Yeah.
later, we're getting the Mummy Returns, but I don't think it's until what 2008, 2009 that the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor came out and felt like so shoehorned in.
Yeah, I have my thoughts on that. I don't know if it's the critical reception so much as that this movie feels like an ending for, the Mummy.
Very true. It does.
So,
So I
and
guess
we'll get into that more later, but I think that it's hard to go anywhere with a franchise that's centered around, a mummy when the Mummy's story has closed.
yeah. Well, so what we're really diving into there is probably what the one of the biggest cruxes of the movie is for me. And we can start diving into it now and really, discuss what is the biggest issue for me in this movie is that they recycle the same mummy from the first movie. Especially the way that they made the first one to me. This feels like they should have just done the Indiana Jones route where every movie they're facing a different type of mummy from a different civilization that they're going through and looking. It feels so tacked on that we're shoving Imhotep into this again.
Yeah, I definitely could see where you're coming from. I don't know that I agree, if only because I think that his story and his place in this story, I think I like more in this Mummy Returns movie than I did in the original one. And
Really?
just the way yeah, I think so. The way that his relationship with with Anaxamun, his relationship with and how that contrasts with Rick and Evie's relationship, I think it's just very interesting as the second half of that movie plays out. And yeah, I think that he was much more relatable and much more interesting for me in this movie. Like he was a deeper character, you know?
Yeah, well, I no, I like what you're saying there. I also agree that I do enjoy that aspect of them diving into like kind of the, differences between the love stories on the two of them. I wish that was in the first movie so that we didn't even have to go through with this one because the thing that kills this movie the most for me is that they're so obsessed in this movie with undermining everything from the first movie because I absolutely hate that they've shoehorned in this destiny thing with Rick O'Connell and Evie. Like the fact, like
Yeah.
why are they reincarnated souls of ancient Egyptians? It makes zero sense for this movie that this is just suddenly something that was always there for them. Because one, if she is the reincarnated daughter of the pharaoh Nefertiti and he is
Right.
like the fabled Magi who's supposed to protect her, one that completely undermines the beauty of their relationship of falling in love in the first one because instead of them just going through this trial by fire and finding each other, now it seems that it was just predestined in the stars. But at the same time, why wasn't that a factor in the first movie? Like you're telling me it only mattered that they were destiny bound for Imhotep in the second movie when it dealt with the Scorpion King, but not in the first movie when they fought him. Like it reeks of them just shoehorning that in because we needed to be bigger, we needed to be bolder, we needed to be bigger set pieces, we needed to be more extravagant, and it just reeks
Yeah.
of them just not understanding how to build your characters in a sequel and instead just shoehorn this random plot element in that completely undermines what is such a spectacular part of the first movie and the franchise as a whole is those two characters and their relationship together.
Yeah. So again, I definitely get where you're coming from, and I can understand why that would be your takeaway on a lot of that. Um, the parts about him having the Medjai tattoo and her being a pharaoh. I mean, the parts about him having like being this ancient Medjai warrior, I didn't really give much attention to. I honestly completely forgot that that was even a thing by the time I finished the movie.
What if
So
I
like,
were to tell you I am a stranger from the East?
yeah,
I would tell you I am a
yeah,
stranger from the West. It's like, shut the fuck up.
yeah. They never really got into where he learned that phrase or what that meant, you know? Or did
Yeah,
they?
but
They said he learned it at like he got the tattoo at like an orphanage or
yeah, he
something,
got the
right?
tattoo at the orphanage, but they never mention why he knew how to respond to that. As if somebody just like subliminally messaged him as a child and they were like, it made zero sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So like the tattoo stuff, though, I did really. It went into the back of my mind by the end of that movie, and I'm a lot more forgiving of the Evie stuff because those flashbacks are some of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. When when the ancient runes get lit up with color as they're walking through them was like a really cool effect. I love the fight scene that she has with. Is it supposed to be her sister, or are they just both like Egyptian nobles? I guess I don't really know.
Both just like I would assume just nobles because I think
Or no,
she's
from the
supposed to
first
marry the
one, that's
pharaoh.
supposed to be her dad's wife, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's her mom.
Right, right. It's just yeah, it's just some other. It's like a stepmom kind of a
Yeah, yeah.
situation.
And listen, I can agree with you that those scenes look cool and that that fight scene is dope and it's super impressive because the two of them learned how to do that, no stunt women or anything. But it's it's hollow underneath. Like when it all dives back to like the overarching of it, I just can't get past it. Like I could
Yeah,
sit there
and
and be like,
that's
that's a cool scene, but as a whole, when it comes like looking at everything, I'm just like, but it's fucking stupid that she's Nefertiti.
yeah, and that's fair. I guess the only thing I can really say is that I could get past it, and like everything else about the movie made me really forgive it. You know?
And that's this is another movie like it all goes down to what you can stomach. And honestly, if this wasn't a sequel to the first Mummy, I would be a lot more forgiving because then I would just be like, oh yeah, cool. Like this is a love story. Like these people were predestined to be together and everything. But the fact that it's this sequel to this movie and there's no establishment of that, it it affects it for me because it just feels so shoehorned in, you know? Like it didn't feel
Yeah,
like they were like this was the natural progression for those characters to take as we make a sequel, and more that they were just like, what would be like a really cool thing is like, what if he was just like an ancient Magi and she was the daughter of the Pharaoh and like they came together to protect each other. And that's why, like, it was one of those things that they were like, this will enrich their relationship, but not realize that it actually takes away from it in a
yeah.
sense.
I definitely get what you're saying. I just it's so interesting because I really thought the opposite, where their relationship in this movie was one of my favorite parts because I liked about this movie as a sequel is that um they didn't lose any of their chemistry, and it sort of you could tell that it had evolved in the time that's supposed to have taken place in between the movies, but they still have that kind of screwball comedy like Hepburn and Tracy witty banter throughout the first, like really throughout the whole movie. And so that even though they did have this kind of shallow, kind of silly, like, oh, we're both reincarnated ancient Egyptians and yada yada, even though they had all that, I just like I don't know, I was kind of distracted by the whole parts I did like, you know, which again they that especially in that first scene, they have such a good back and forth where they're like, oh well, I guess we'll do it your way, and they like knock the thing down with the big like it was like a hammer.
No, I completely agree with that. I love their chemistry, and that's a big part of what made the first movie so great. There's just the way that they play off of each other, and that's still there in this movie, and I still love the
Yeah.
back and forth that they have. But if
Or like when
my
Brendan
thing
Fraser.
really just comes to that underlining of it. Like if they just literally did this movie and never brought attention to that fact that they were those, I would have had zero issues with that.
Yeah, it's probably a little better if they just never mention the tattoo. I do like the flashbacks. The flashbacks, I don't know if I could do without them, but maybe I'd have to think about it
But
a little more. Maybe.
you can just do it in a way without the flashbacks, but like she's been training since she like that's just stuff she picked up from Rick. Like Rick is like teaching her how to defend herself and like he's learning to be a little bit more book smart. Like the
Yeah.
only thing you're really losing is that sweet cutaway visual where like she does a turn and suddenly she's in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, that's fair. And you could even just keep that in the movie and not really like just really hint at what's going on rather than be so overt about it, you know?
Exactly.
But I also one of my favorite scenes is when she almost walks off the hot air balloon. So that's what like that's part of a flashback. So I don't know. I really like all those. I couldn't do without them, man.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, different strokes for different folks. It's funny because it's always interesting to see how we align on movies and like the differences in them. Because normally you would look at a movie like this, and I would, and like it would normally you would think it would be the opposite, where you would be the one who would be a little bit more staunchly against something, and I'm the more forgiving one. And in this case, it's kind of the opposite here, where I can't really get past this thing that actively ruins the movie for me, and you seem a lot more forgiving.
Yeah, because I don't know. I just had a lot of fun watching this. So I
And
don't
I
know.
mean,
And
don't
it's
don't get me
definitely a
wrong.
fond memory.
I don't want it to feel like I didn't enjoy watching this movie. I did enjoy watching this movie, and I don't want this to feel like it's going to be, just like a hate parade for me because there's still a lot of stuff in this
Yeah,
movie that
yeah,
I did like, but that was like the biggest thing that I needed to like have front and center that actively hurt it for me. But I did have a lot of fun with this movie, but mainly it's a lot of due to the characters because Rick O'Connell, one of the biggest badasses around. Like, not only is that the dopest name for like an adventure seeker, like treasure hunter guy, just like Rick O'Connell, like fuck yeah, man, let's go hang out with that guy. That guy's probably into some cool shit. Like
yeah.
he's just badass.
Yeah, he's so American, which is so funny.
Yeah, it's
He's this really idealized version of what it means to be American, where all your brashness just really comes in handy, you know?
yeah, absolutely. And I love movies, especially when it comes to sequels, that understand how to frame a shot to reintroduce us to our heroes. Because
Yeah.
when we first come out of that late flashback explaining, the Scorpion King and everything, and we're gonna meet Rick again for the first time, and it goes into the tomb, and we have this sweet silhouette backdrop against these spider webs where you just see the outline of Rick and he pulls his gun and then he comes into the light as he's pushing the spider web away to illuminate his face. And I'm just like, fuck yes, man. Like that is such a good shot. Like that's how you reintroduce like a character right there. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah. Another small, like really smart technical decision to me is that in that scene, he gets scared by the kid. So I immediately get they're telling me right away in a visual way how much time has passed.
Yeah,
I know that kid wasn't born too long after the end of the first movie, you know?
absolutely. You know,
And so
that's
yeah, I like that. I like that whole opening sequence when the kid is shooting the slingshot at the two like grave robber guys.
no, that scene is well done. And I do like everything that goes on with it. Their back and forth is a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Like when he's trying to open it up with the crowbar, and she's like, I can get that open. He's like, oh, by all means. And then she just turns the dial real quick, and it opens. And he's like, all right, now you're starting to freak me out.
Yeah.
Like
And
their banter.
it's really yeah, it's really reminiscent of the opening scene of Indiana Jones to me, of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're kind of diving deeper into this temple and they're going through each new obstacle that they come across, and finally they find and then right, and we get in the middle of them going through all that stuff, we see the person that's going to come in and try and like sneak up on them, and the kids kind of battling with enemies outside. So I don't know, I think it's one of those things we've talked about in a few of these movies where it just escalates so well throughout that opening, and they find the MacGuffin for the movie, right, the bracelet, and they overcome so many obstacles, and it keeps escalating to the point where they're about to drown, and then the kid accidentally like breaks them open. It's just really cool filmmaking, you know? It's really
No,
cool. Like that whole sequence has a great beginning, middle, and end.
that whole opening is definitely one of the bigger and better set pieces of the movie, and it does everything it's supposed to in getting you pumped for this ride that we're about to take, and is definitely one of the highlights of the movie. One of the small things in it too that cracked me up was when they first opened like the tomb door and Evie is giving her explanation and she's so like cautious to jump around like the spiders and the scorpions, and then Rick just like makes a big jump in there and you hear him like squish a bunch of them and he's just stomping through it. And you're just like, wow,
Yeah.
Rick is a dick to scorpions and spiders. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
I don't want to harp too much on. I'm gonna leave all the praise for Emotep and everything to you because it even though I do love the actors who play the two of them and their relationship playing off of each other against Rick's and theirs is really good. I just can't, in good conscience, want Emotep in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm gonna heap some more praise. I can't help it because that I mean, really, the ending of the movie, which a lot of the stuff it feels like you're saying you don't like, is kind of set up that feels kind of hokey throughout the middle. But the ending, just that ending sequence when they've defeated the Scorpion King, who by the way doesn't really make it into this movie a lot
The
because
Scorpion King is a movie based on the character of the Scorpion King.
that's his movie, the Scorpion King. He's not in this one.
Yeah, he's
So
really just in the opening and then in like the last 10 minutes.
Right, right. And so, after they've beaten him and that crack in the ground opens up and Rick O'Connell and Imhotep are both hanging off of it. And there's all those weird like river Styx kind of souls down there grabbing at them.
Yeah.
And they both call out to their significant others who are standing in that little archway watching them hang on for literally dear life. And what do they do? Rick O'Connell tells Evie to run. He's like, get out of here. I'm a lost cause. You need to stay safe. And Evie can't do it. You know what I mean? She cannot leave him there because these two people actually love each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the way that plays off of the mummy and is so perfect because they each do the exact opposite thing. The mummy Imhotep is so selfish. He can't let her go. He needs her to come save him because he can't do what Rick O'Connell is doing. He can't sacrifice himself for her to live. And what does Anaximanoon do? She does the exact opposite of Evie because she doesn't actually love the man. She loves the power. She loves like the prestige. She loves all of that stuff. That, by the way, the director takes away from them when they go into the scene with the Scorpion King. So all the stuff that she actually loves him for is gone. And when the man is there hanging, she leaves him to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that's all good stuff. I completely agree with
Yeah.
you. It's one of the
And
better
then his heart's
portions of
his
it.
heart's broken. His heart's broken. He watches Rick O'Connell and Evie O'Connell ride off into the sunset, and then he swan dives because he lost in every sense of the word.
Yeah, no, and I agree that all that is really good. I just think all of that probably should have been in the first movie with him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, that's a fair criticism. I agree with that.
But
But
I
they
agree with you.
didn't
No,
do that, so I'm glad
all
I
that
got to see
stuff
it.
all that stuff is great though. I do think that that is one of the highlights of especially that scene with the atrocious. I'm gonna say it three times. Atrocious CGI that infects this movie.
Yeah, it's real bad. And that's another memory I have of this movie was being very disappointed because I was excited to see The Rock, and then he was only in it in the very beginning. And then in the end, even I knew that was really bad when I was like 11 years old.
Yeah, the Scorpion King is the de facto awful piece of this CGI monstrosity. But this whole movie is littered with some tough CGI, and it's insane to look at that this movie is 2 years after the previous Mummy, and the previous Mummy dances circles around with its CGI. The waterfall scene, another pointless callback from the first movie that they have to do. They're like, how
Yeah.
should we one up the sandstorm? I got it. We'll do a waterfall one, but it'll look 10 times worse than the
Yeah.
sandstorm one looked in the first one. Or we'll
I mean,
bring
you're not
back
wrong.
those mummies from the first one that Rick fought, where he's just like, "Oh, I hate these guys," and he'll have them poke him in the eyes, and it'll look horrible. And they're like, "Yeah, let's
Is
do it."
that's the scene when they have the double decker bus. That scene is so great.
No, no, I like a lot of the action in that scene. I just think a lot of the CGI in it at times
Right.
looks awful. Yeah,
Right.
and what
It's
saves
pretty
it
rough,
is
yeah.
Brendan Fraser's stellar performance of how he just reacts to everything that's happening the entire movie. His like catchisms every time something silly is going on is great.
Yeah, I love it because he's almost like the dad from the Honeymooners or like All in the Family, where he's just annoyed the whole movie.
Yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean?
and it
Like
works
from
so
the
well.
jump, he's like, "Nope, we're not going to this oasis." He's so against it, and she keeps telling him how dangerous it is, or he keeps guessing how dangerous it is actually, and he's like, "Yeah, because it's always this dangerous." Like,
Like
and he's sick of it.
he's playing this movie as a guy who just got back from a vacation and just wants to sit in his chair and can't because now he's got to go on another adventure.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like his stupid kid's car just broke down or something, and he's like, "Oh God, I gotta go take care of this again." Like,
Yeah, like he's just so like I love when he first sees the Medjay guy again. I don't remember what the character's name is. And he's just like, you put on the bracelet. He's like, you just released the curse. It's going to end in 1,000 years. And they're just like, he's like, you like, chill out. You big trouble. You get
Yeah,
in the
get
car.
in the
Like
car. Yeah.
he's just done. He's the absolute like dad right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, by the way, the brother, Evie's brother. What's his name again? I forget.
Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan. He's the worst kid.
You know, he's just
Like
a
he
bumbling
plays
idiot.
off of, right. He plays off of that annoyed dad character of Brendan Fraser so well.
Like
He's an
he's
idiot.
so
He's a
great.
total womanizer. He's like spending all of his money hand over fist. You know what I mean?
Like even though like they all made so much from that first movie, Jonathan's still living in this huge house with them. Like,
Right. And he's throwing wild parties all the time.
yeah, like
Dude, I
it's
love that
great.
scene by the way too when they mistake Jonathan for Rick O'Connell.
Oh yeah, that's great. And
Yeah.
the best thing
He's
is
so,
that's a
he's
great
such a
encapsulation of
he's such
Jonathan
a
too.
sniveling worm, dude.
Yeah. No, but it's so great about him too because while he is so childish and everything, he still pretends to be Rick to try to like for
Right,
whatever
right.
reason to keep
Dude,
like Rick and them out of it.
he goes through every weaselly thing he can think of to try and not die. In like in 2 minutes, he goes through
Yeah.
10 different things and he just keeps changing until he finds something they want to hear. It's so funny.
He's the really great comic relief, and a lot of his jokes do always land for me. He's just got a good presence about him that he can make even a joke that doesn't always work because he's just a really solid comedic actor in this movie.
Yeah, he's the perfect foil for Rick O'Connell. He's so good. He's so like if Rick O'Connell's the straight man, it makes everything Jonathan's doing 10 times funnier throughout the first like half of the movie, really.
Yeah, like he's great. And especially when like every time anything happens and you see Jonathan react the same way the kid does, it's classic.
Yes.
Like,
Exactly. He's just an extra kid for the annoyed dad. It's so funny.
yeah, like he gets in the car, breaks the key in the ignition. He
Yeah, and they're like waiting in the car telling each other scary stories and stuff.
Yeah, like he's just such a bumbling doofus, but he plays it
Yeah,
so well.
absolutely. Yeah. Dude, I
Another
also
fan.
I
Yeah, go on.
you know, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna say I really like the airship. That was a cool twist. I thought that was cool. Like the driver was really funny. The scene with them convincing him to drive them or fly them, I suppose. And yeah,
Solid.
it was just an interesting way for them to travel, and it kind of saved the whole waterfall scene for me, if I'm being totally honest.
Oh, it did it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the I because it's weird because I agree with a lot of the stuff you're saying, but I didn't think any of it while I was watching the movie because I was just like they had me distracted, dude. I was totally following their sleight of hand, you know?
Fair, yeah. Then I guess they did their jobs worth for you. And I think a lot of this doesn't help that I'm such a big fan of the first one. So I'm probably
Yeah,
like more critical than need be. But at the same time, I feel like I have to be because this should be to the standard that the previous one is. And a lot of it that kills it for me is them doing so many of the callbacks from the first movie but just lesser. Because it's like, oh, we got to resurrect the Noxuna Moon again. But even though it was such a big hassle in the first one to do it, we did it in like 5 seconds in this movie. Oh, we got
yeah,
to open up the horror sculptures again that Imhotep is going to feed on the guys for. We do it in 5 seconds in this movie. Oh, hey, we got the waterfall thing again. Oh, but it's just a callback from the first movie. Like everything they do in this just feels like diminishing returns for me instead of them coming up with actual new and inventive things to do in this movie,
yeah. They're
you know?
playing all the hits. They're
Yeah,
playing all the hits.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I and
they're
while I don't have a
getting
problem with you playing some of the hits, I also, I want to hear some variety, man. I want you to give me a new jam.
yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, that would be like if they did right after Raiders of the Lost Ark, did Temple of Doom and then just replayed the hits. Like, how much
I don't
lesser of
know.
a movie would Temple of Doom be if they just replayed the hits of
I don't
Raiders of
know.
the Lost Ark?
People might have liked Temple of Doom a lot better.
But those people are stupid because Temple of Doom
Yeah,
is a fantastic fucking movie because it did its own thing and dared to be wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do like all three of those Indiana Jones movies, so I'm not going to say anything too bad about Temple of Doom, but a lot of people I know aren't the biggest fan of it.
I know a lot of people that are too, and I yell at them all the
Speaking
time.
speaking of Indiana Jones, by the way, you said something about romancing the stone. I think it was last week that romancing the stone was kind of just a budget Indiana Jones. So like what I'm going to ask you this week is how is the mummy not just a budget Indiana Jones?
I didn't say it wasn't. It's also a budget Indiana Jones. The difference
Okay.
is in the execution.
Okay, gotcha. So all right, no, I mean
Yeah,
yeah,
I
and
don't.
that's a fair answer to that question. I didn't think I wasn't assuming what you would say. I just wanted to see what you said.
Yeah, no, and I listen. I don't have a problem. A lot of movies are just budget other movies, but in a different genre. And I'm totally cool with doing that. It's all in the execution of how you do them. In the same way that, like Avatar is just Pocahontas in space, but that sounds awesome. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally.
so I'm cool with that. Like it seems it's a no-brainer to sit there and be like, let's make another mummy movie, but it's like a sword and sandal type movie, type like Indiana Jones. Because we're way back in the 30s in like, Egypt and everything, and we're just gonna play it like he's a treasure hunter Indiana Jones style movie. And it's like, fuck yeah, that sounds absolutely like why didn't we think of that? Like do that right now. So I
That
got no problem.
that vibe does work particularly well for the mummy specifically too.
Like it just fits. And I think that might be why like maybe Tomb of the Dragon Emperor didn't hit. Well, one, they didn't have a lot of the core people back, but two, it feels like they abandoned that to do a more just late 2000s low budget action movie that was like common around then
Yeah,
and
I
not.
never even I'm not going to lie, I've never seen that one.
Oh, it's rough.
So,
It's rough.
yeah, I've never seen it. I've heard it's really bad and just from having seen clips, I suppose, and maybe just the trailer, it doesn't seem like it kept the same kind of vibe. Losing the desert aspect of it, I think was pretty rough for that movie. It was like a central to its tone and everything.
I do get that. I think this movie still can work without a desert theme, but it's definitely a balancing act. And it definitely takes a certain type of filmmaker to really make it work. And the way that they did it, I just don't think they took the care to make sure that it would hit in the way that it needed to hit. Because to me, the mummy in my head, they really should have just gone all in on the Indiana Jones vibe and done a different mummy every story. And I know it's kind of antithetical to what we've been talking about because I'm also sitting here being like Tomb of the Dragon Emperor was garbage. But I think
Yeah.
there's a universe out there where you could make that work.
I wonder why in a sequel to The Mummy, the Scorpion King couldn't be the Mummy. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think this movie, just them facing off against the Scorpion King, should have been enough, right?
Yeah, and I think that's part of why I was disappointed because I was kind of expecting it to go that route. But then again, it is called The Mummy Returns. And then, I mean, as The Rock so eloquently pointed out,
The Scorpion King is a movie based on the character of the Scorpion King.
so I mean,
So,
really, you're just kind of trapped there. The Scorpion King is a movie about the Scorpion King, so
yeah. Well, I think they backed themselves into a corner with this one by the first Mummy being such a huge hit that they were all so eager to churn out another one and play up what worked so well about the first one that they were like, this will be a slam dunk without really sitting back and taking the time to think, what would a great sequel to this really look like? Because I don't think you call this movie The Mummy Returns. It should just be The Mummy and then have a subtitle, The Scorpion King.
yeah, something like that, right?
And it's
Yeah, and I don't know. My Hollywood conspiracy theory that I literally just came up with right now, and it is based on nothing but conjecture. What if they got The Rock, they brought The Rock on to be the mummy in the second Mummy movie, and then they realized, oh man, we're in a lot of trouble here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this movie was already greenlit. There's a director attached. They're putting all kinds of money into drafts of a script, And then they're just like, but The Rock is not really cutting it right now. So they're like, all right, what do? We bring back the other mummy, man. He was great.
As much as
we'll,
that
we'll,
would be,
we'll fit The Rock in there somehow, but just give me Imhotep, dude. He was so good.
as much as that sounds like a grand conspiracy, I could not give them that much credit.
Yeah, definitely tinfoil hat. And again, totally made up. I don't even really know. I don't even really know that I think that's what actually happened.
That's fair. That's fair. I will say, I think my favorite aspect about this movie, and I think you'll know what I'm about to say because I texted you about it after I finished the movie.
Hmm.
This soundtrack kills.
Yeah, it's
Fantastic,
awesome, dude. It's
fantastic
awesome.
soundtrack done by Alan Silvestri, who's actually done a lot of Robert Zemeckis's movies. He did the Back to the Future ones, and I even this was a movie much like we talked about with Gladiator, where we heard the Pirates of the Caribbean themes. I could
Yeah.
hear Back to the Future themes in some of this while they're doing like the main motif that they constantly call back to in this Mummy movie has a similar pattern to a big portion of some of the Back to the Future soundtrack. And I'm not gonna like hum it here because it won't sound nearly as convincing.
Yeah.
But
No, but I think I
if you go
know
and
I think
listen
I
to
know
them,
which part you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, if you go and listen to them back to back, you can definitely hear the similarities. And it was just very interesting when I recognized that. But this soundtrack absolutely kills, and it was one of those things that really does help make this movie feel grander is a bitching soundtrack, and this movie has an absolutely stellar soundtrack behind it.
Yeah, yeah. It's part of the sleight of hand that distracts me, man. That's part of the thing that really draws me in and lets me pay attention to the more fun, grandiose parts and not so much attention to the silly, shallow I will have said you found me and I am traveling from the west, you know?
And I will say I'm a stranger from the West, and it is I who you seek. Like what?
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, good
Who's
call.
who said that? Like, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Jim, I wonder if you caught it. There is a that guy in this movie, and I wonder if you noticed who it was. He had a pretty big part in this movie, and I only bring up that guy because he was part of something that a TV show that you and I both loved when we were in high school.
Let me know if this answers your question.
Give it to me now.
So you know the guy.
I do know the guy. I do know the guy.
Thought that was my job.
Do you know what TV show he was from that we loved so much in high school? I mean, it should
I
give it
want
away
to
since I said that we loved.
Yeah, I want to say he was Mr. Echo, right? The guy from Lost.
Yes, he was. That was Mr. Echo. I'm not going to pronounce his name because the last thing I need to do is butcher this poor man's name.
I'm afraid I can't do that.
Yes, I am afraid I cannot do that because this man's name is very, very hard to pronounce, and I'm not going to do it. But he was Mr. Echo. He was in the Suicide Squad. He was in Pompeii, that really terrible disaster movie with him and Jon Snow. So this guy,
Wow.
he's been around,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
obviously, Mr.
I,
Echo, one of the best roles, obviously. But he is one of the better parts of this movie. He just got a really fun presence with him, and I do love the way he reacts to having to deal with the kid constantly throughout this movie.
yeah, and he walks a fine line, right, between a badass that needs to stand up to this Magi warrior from the first one, who they do a great job of setting up their rivalry from the very start. So
Well, when they have
he
their
has to.
first fight in their home, and he like gives him a little bit of a wound to the Magi guy, and then he goes to leave, and he has the bitchin' throw the cape around my shoulders walk off that you see in so many good
Yes.
movies.
Yeah. Classic, dude. Yeah. And so he has to walk that balance, right, of being that big bad that they're going to have to fight toward the end, or at least one of them is going to have to fight toward the end. And then also he's kind of babysitting the kid once the kid is kidnapped.
Yeah,
And you're right, he's funny in those scenes, dude. The way he plays off the kid, like I laughed a lot throughout that center portion where the kid is in captivity.
And he like the kid is just being really annoying on the train, and he slams down the knife, and the kid's like, "Whoa, that was a great shot." And he's like, "What are you talking about? I
I
missed."
missed. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I wish I had pulled that one. That was a great
he's
quote.
he's got a lot of really good lines in this movie. How did the kid handle for you? Because I know, a lot of the times in movies, you bring a kid into this great dynamic from a movie, and it can go one of two ways. The kid can be either the most annoying person on the planet, or he can walk that fine line and be okay. How did the kid fare in this movie for you?
I thought he was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he stood out as. I don't know that anything he did really stood out to me as something where I was like, "Wow, that's a kid acting. He's really good." But he was just kind of there, But he wasn't bad. He didn't take away from it for me in any way.
I thought the same thing. Like he was one of the better, when they always add the child to the sequels for the love interests. He was definitely on the more standable of them. I think the only thing that made me laugh, and again, this one is a nitpick, I will admit, like it doesn't actively ruin the movie for me, but every time it happened, I was just laughing. But how that their son was just like a champion sand sculptor, like he was just perfectly sculpting
Yeah,
these
yeah.
Egyptian ruins everywhere they
It's
went with the pail of water that he's being left. It was like, what? And
yeah.
also, how did nobody find that? Like,
Dude, how much water was he getting? Was he using all his water to do that? Because they were
yeah,
traveling for a really long time.
yeah, like how did that kid not die of dehydration out in the desert? Because he definitely needed every drop of water that they were giving him to pull those off. Like some of those ruins that he was creating were fucking hard.
Crazy detailed, yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's pretty it's pretty insane that he had the time to craft them without anybody, like you said, without anybody noticing. And there was a lot of stops on that montage. They did like 5 or 6 where
Yeah,
he
he,
like
he built a lot of those. I was like, damn, dude, somebody get this kid to the beach because he needs to be entered into a sandcastle competition immediately.
yeah, dude, I also loved the scenes with him and Emotep. The scene when he first meets Emotep and he's telling him about the bracelet and how the kid's saying he's not going to lead him where he needs to go, and then the kid finds out that it'll kill him if they don't get to the place in time.
Yeah, some of that was good. They do have a good banter back and forth. That was another thing though at times that made me laugh because it was when he first meets him and Imhotep gives him that and he's like he just lifts up his hand and the kid just like floats up off the ground and it was like, when the fuck did you get that power?
Yeah. Who knows, dude? He's the mummy. Who cares? He's got powers. It's fine.
Mummy's just levitating human beings now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's so
yeah.
silly. But I
But
love how we
I think
go
I'm
on.
gonna take back what I said earlier. I do think the kid was pretty impressive in that scene with the bracelet. Like he went from like all cocky to kind of like scared and in awe real fast, which I thought was pretty great.
No, the kid did well and he more than held his own in this movie. And it's cracking me up now that we've discussed so much of everything in regards to dealing with this kid, with that guy, and the crazy CGI, but we haven't talked about where all those three things combine, which is the absolutely insane pygmy showdown
Oh yeah.
in the middle of this movie.
Dude, what was that all about? That was so silly. Those villains were ridiculous.
Oh, it was the most absurd thing ever. And that was another one. When the pygmies are like dimly lit and they're just in like the shadows of the trees attacking, it doesn't look so bad. But when they run across the felled log and all of the pygmies start running across it and they're grabbing at the dynamite, it looked so bad. Like it showed them like all dancing, like to collect it, and it looked like bad like PS2 animations.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I kind of loved that part too, man. I kind of
I mean, I'm not saying I hated it. It's just
it just
definitely a
it
far cry from the first movie.
I must just be way too biased because none of like you're saying all this stuff and I'm kind of nodding, but at the same time I'm like, but this movie was still amazing, okay? Don't you say that.
And listen, Jim, if you feel that way, please defend it. I don't want it to feel like I am unceremoniously shitting too hard on this movie because those I
No,
do
I
enjoy
think
those things at the same time.
I think I'm gonna have to go back and watch the first one because I'm wondering if that I'm just enjoying it mostly because they're playing the hits and I just haven't heard the hits in a while, you know?
Fair. It's absolutely fair. If you had to take a guess, how long has it been since you've seen the first one?
Not as long as you'd think. Probably like 3 years. I watched it like somewhat recently.
Yeah, so yes, that's not too long
Since
ago.
uh since I moved out west, I've definitely watched that movie.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So that's not like crazy long to the point that it could still be relatively fresh.
Yeah, it's fresh enough where I know the hits and I noticed them, but it's also not so fresh that I'm like, oh man, that hits is not as good in this movie, you know?
Yeah, that it's like I how it is for like me where like I can like legit call back to scenes from the first movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
which is fair. Which I mean is fair because for me, The Mummy being one of those, like top 50 movies of all time, I'd watch that movie a lot.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna go back and watch it again this week.
Is there anything else in there that you feel like we haven't touched on that you want to rally cry right now to try and turn me around on this movie?
No, I think we've hit the big strokes of the movie itself. I do want to move on to
Everyone's favorite
yeah.
game show, this or that. We're doing the IMDb deep dive. All right, who you starting off with for this deep dive? Who you throwing at me?
I think we're gonna start with the director for this one. We'll do
All
Steven
right.
Sommers.
Stephen Sommers. I used to think when I was a kid it was Stephen Summers, and I was like, oh, that's a O in there. Whoopsies.
All right, so his first movie. Do you
Okay.
take The Mummy or Catch Me If You Can?
What?
That's just a gag. I've never heard of this movie, but he did direct a movie called Catch Me If You Can. It's from 1989. It's not the one that everybody knows.
Was literally was gonna say, I was like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
A hotshot car racer persuades the class president of a small Minnesota high school to gamble on illegal car races to raise money for their school facing closure.
I'm gonna lie, I want to watch that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who else is in it, but
Doesn't sound terrible, but that also sounds like such a far cry from the genre movies that he's known for.
yeah, it's definitely all right. So that was the gag one because I knew you were gonna be like what when I said Catch Me If You Can. Um, I don't know. Did you ever see The Adventures of Puck Finn? It's like from
Oh, that's with the
1993.
with Elijah Wood though, right? He plays like the young McFinn.
Yeah, I don't. This one, I don't think I've seen it, so we can't do
I
that
also have not
one.
seen it.
All right, so let's get to some ones that I know you've definitely
We've
seen.
seen.
The Mummy Returns or The Mummy. I think I know what you're gonna pick.
Gee, I wonder where my allegiance will lie on that one. I mean, we can get it out of the way right now. The Mummy is the best movie this guy's done.
Yeah, you're gonna take okay, the first Mummy. So let's see where you think The Mummy Returns falls in though.
Okay.
The Mummy Returns or Van Helsing.
Mummy Returns. I hate
Okay.
I hate that fucking movie.
Yeah, Van Helsing's not very good, right?
That's a movie we're going to be watching down the line. We went and saw that.
Yeah, yeah, we did. You're right.
God damn it.
The Mummy Returns or G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra.
Ooh. G.I. Joe.
I don't
That's
know
a
that I don't know that I've seen The Rise of Cobra.
that's a fun one.
I
That's
saw
the
the
first
first
one.
G.I. Joe movie. Oh, that is
Yeah.
the first one?
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
first one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah. I think I take The Mummy Returns though.
yeah. Ooh, interesting. All right.
The Mummy Returns or Odd Thomas.
Fuck even is that?
Dude, you never seen Odd Thomas? It's I'm
No.
pretty sure that's the one with Anton Yelich.
No, I've never even heard of that movie.
Or Anton Yelchin. Sorry, I'm an
I
idiot. I
was
don't
gonna
know his
say, I
name.
was like, what?
Anton Yelchin.
No, I've
He
not
was
heard of that.
he plays this guy who can see these weird like death monsters. It's a pretty interesting movie. I would still take The Mummy Returns though.
I'll have to look that up. You
And
skipped
then
over
I
Deep
wonder.
Rising, bro.
I've never heard of that one. What's Deep
Oh, you never
Rising?
saw that? So it follows a group of people that come across like an ocean liner that's just derelict in the like in the middle of the sea. And when they get on it, it turns out that there's like a squid monster on it. And it's and they all and the squid monster starts like killing them.
Dude, I've never heard of this movie.
Oh, it is a hilariously silly B movie.
I gotta go watch it.
You absolutely. That's a movie I think you would like too, because that's right up your alley of like really fun, dumb schlock.
Yeah, and that was from wait, what
It's like
was the year on that one?
96, 95. It's like Treat Williams, Famke Johnson, I think her name is. Jean Grey.
1998.
Yeah, Jean Grey's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, did you ever see the old live action Jungle Book? He directed the Jungle Book from 1994.
He really?
That's what it says, yeah.
That's fucking
I never saw that
hilarious.
though.
That's hilarious. I haven't seen it either, but I know the movie you're talking about. That's hilarious. This man has had quite an odd career.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now
I don't know.
is
The Mummy Returns stays pretty high on that list for me, but there is a
yeah,
couple
no,
more
it
movies
would
that
for
I
me
want to
too. I would
watch.
probably put The Mummy Returns at number three, like right behind G.I. Joe. Is G.I. Joe the last movie he's done, or that Anton Yelchin movie the last one he's done?
Yeah, the Anton Yelchin one, Odd Thomas, is the last one he did. That was 2013.
Damn. Oh, poor guy. Oh well, on to
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser.
Well,
Poor,
yeah, so
poor guy.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, my
Um
guy.
this is going to be an interesting one because this
This
is a
man,
filmography that stretches across mucho amounts of time.
this man having quite the resurgence right now too.
All right, ready?
Yeah, hit me with it.
The Mummy Returns or Encino Man?
Encino, man.
No way, man. I'm taking The Mummy Returns.
You're crazy.
The Mummy Returns or School Ties?
The Mummy Returns.
Oh, I think I might take School Ties.
We're opposites on that one.
School Ties is so funny, dude. Well, no, it's not funny. It's a
I was
drama
gonna
movie,
say,
but
like, I
it's
don't think
just
that
like
movie's a comedy.
it's not, but it's I don't know. It's an interesting like snapshot in time, and I think Matt Damon's really good in that movie. Brendan Fraser's really good in that movie. Mummy Returns or Airheads?
Airheads.
Yeah, Airheads. I'm taking Airheads.
This is fucking classic.
The Mummy Returns, or I'm interested to see if you know this movie, The Scout.
Or he's the with Albert Brooks, right? Where he's the pitcher.
Yeah, Albert. Right, Albert Brooks is the baseball scout who
Yeah,
finds him in some. He's like from some Central American country, and he's like this
yeah,
amazing pitcher.
yeah. I've never seen that movie, but I know the one you're talking about.
I like that movie. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't know how well it holds up. But I'm taking The Scout. The Mummy Returns or George of the Jungle.
Mummy Returns.
Yeah, I'm taking The Mummy Returns.
George of the
George of the
Jungle
Jungle
is
was not very
fun.
good.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's not like a great movie.
Okay, I think we're not going to do The Mummy again. Did you ever see Blast from the Past?
Oh, dude, I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I think I'm
That
taking Blast from the Past.
that movie. Yeah, I'm also taking Blast from the Past.
All right, ready? Mummy Returns or Dudley Do Right?
Oh,
What
I do,
a stone cold classic for
I
stupid comedy
do
movies.
love that fucking movie, but I'll give it to The Mummy Returns.
Yeah, I'm taking The Mummy Returns.
Dudley Do
The
Right is
Mummy.
much like George of the Jungle, where it's just like it's just dumb funny.
Yeah, The Mummy Returns or Bedazzled.
Mummy Returns. Bedazzled's fucking.
Oh, dude, you didn't like Bedazzled? That movie's so silly.
I'd have to watch it again. It's been a very long time, but I remember it being like silly dumb.
Yeah, a lot of these other ones I've never seen, so just call out one, call these out if you've seen them. The Quiet American,
No.
Looney Tunes Back in Action.
Oh, classic stupid. Mummy Returns over that.
Yeah, I've never seen Looney Tunes Back in Action.
That's dumb.
Uh, Mummy Returns or Crash.
Oh god, that fucking movie.
I've never seen Crash
Mummy
either. I've always
Mummy
heard it's
Re-
terrible.
Mummy Returns. I've seen it. It's not terrible, but it's not near like it got overblown by them being like, it's the best movie of the year and giving it the Academy Award. It was like that was a bold fucking move.
Yeah, I was never interested in it, so can't
It's
really say
it's
much.
it's fine. It's fine.
I don't know that there's anything else really. I mean, I guess Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Mummy Returns, or Journey to the Center of the Earth.
He returns.
A lot of these
Then
don't
he's
feel close, so
Yeah,
I
well
don't
then
know
he's
that I
kind
have
of
any other
like
ones.
at this point you're getting to the stage in his career where he kind of trailed out for a while and we haven't seen him again until last year with The Whale.
Yeah, I guess we can just cut up to now then. The Mummy
Which
Returns or The Whale, two very different
I was
movies.
gonna say, like, I don't even know how you compare. I mean, I'd go The Mummy Returns because The Mummy Returns is the funner movie, but obviously The Whale is the better performance.
Yeah, I mean,
'But
yeah,
like, I'm never gonna want to watch The Whale ever again. Like, it was so fucking depressing.
agreed.
Like, if I'm sitting there and they're like,
Which
"Yo, what do you
that's
want to watch
how
tonight? The Whale or The Mummy Returns?" I'll be like, "Yeah, fuck Mummy Returns, bro. Like, I want to see Rick O'Connell kick some ass."
that director rolls though. Isn't The Whale Darren Aronofsky?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how he makes movies that you never want to see again after you see
yeah.
them the
That they're
first
like
time.
they're really good, but I'll never return to them again. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
mean,
then
spoiler
he's
alert.
also
Also, Mummy is my favorite Brendan Fraser movie, the first one.
okay. Did you see Killers of the Flower Moon yet?
Yeah,
He's in that. I don't know how
he's
big of a part he
he's in
has.
it for like legit 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
5 minutes out of
And
three and
then
a half hours. So I don't think you can really count him. You could count him as
he
much as you can count The Rock being in The Mummy Returns. All right, moving away from our IMDb. I don't know why I pronounced that weird. Our IMDb deep dive. Is there a world that you think, especially with legacy sequels being such a big thing right now, that they can get Brendan and Rachel and Jonathan and all them back for another go around? Do you think there's a world out there, there's a story out there that would warrant another Mummy movie?
I don't have one because like I said, I think that the original like the way that the Mummy's story ends in this one, I think is the end of it for me. And I don't know that I necessarily need to see anymore. And that's why I didn't see The Dragon Emperor, and that's why I haven't put that much thought into what another Mummy movie would look like. What
Yeah.
about you? What you got to sell me on this because I don't think it should exist. So what do you have any ideas?
So I do have one idea, but I don't think it's going to be one that's really going to sell you on that there absolutely should be another one because I'm also in the boat with you that if somebody, came in, if somebody walked into my room and was like, "Hey, we should do another Mummy movie," I would be like, "You absolutely fucking should not." But gun to my head, the only thing that possibly titillated me a little bit when I was thinking about it was we're catching back up with Rick O'Connell now. He's a bit more seasoned. He's an older, grizzled veteran at this point. Not as quick on his game now. Still loves to be the hero, going out treasure hunting and everything. Still with Evie, their relationship still very much how it was. But he's lost a step, so his adventure hunting is definitely going to take its toll on him now. And let's say they come across something that is bigger than they could handle, and in the process of it, Evie gets killed. And so Rick being a fucking
Ooh.
wreck and not being able to handle a world without Evie does the only thing that he knows that he can do to try and get Evie back. Well, I guess I forgot
He
at this
go
point now.
he
So
goes back in time to try and talk to Archimedes.
imagine that
That's just the
was there a
ballad
movie that
test.
did that? Oh, yeah, yeah. No, so Rick, so despondent to get her back and help defeat whatever evil that they unleashed in this beginning, has to use the Book
Oh.
of the Dead to bring back Imhotep and team up with Imhotep to stop this and get Evie back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in actually.
So it's almost like a buddy cop movie because you could even do something where, like, let's say whatever it was that got Evie killed or whatever, let's say maybe the presence of the mummy that came back doesn't come back as a mummy, but comes back and uses Evie's body as a vessel.
Okay. It's all right. You're starting to lose me, but okay.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
you're,
But
you're starting to
basically,
lose me.
what you could boil it
It's
down.
interesting. I would have thought you would have went more along the like a different mummy route.
Which I know it is funny that I spent a whole time talking about how this should be standalone movies, but then for my new pitch, it would be like, "Hey, Emotep's also back." But at this point in the game, you're if you're gonna
All
make
right, so
another
hold
mummy
on.
movie, go on. Yeah, go on.
You've got a really important thing to say right now that is really gonna make or break if I'm interested in watching this or not.
Okay, here we go.
Why does Emotep help him?
That is the question to be asked.
Because
Obviously,
if there's a good reason why Emotep needs to help him, I don't know. I might be in.
you could be in. Well, I mean, the easiest route is it's the same thing as the Scorpion King. Like Emotep sees this as his chance to seize power and get back a Noxuna Moon again. Like he's like the wilted lover who's like, I think this time I can get her back, man. And Rick is just despondent enough to go along with it, even though he knows in the back of his head that like eventually Emotep's gonna turn on him and he's gonna have to fight him again. But he
like,
loves Evie that badly that he's willing
like
to do it.
Emotep is like Logan from the episodes of Veronica Mars when they break up. Like he's just totally depressed, and
Exactly.
he's like always talking about a Moxina Moon or whatever her name is. Like he's just always bringing her up no matter what's going on.
And I also love that you have not pronounced her name correctly once the entire
How do
time.
you say? How do you say it?
Anak. Play that one for me one more time. One more time. Anak
Yeah, like that. That's how you say it.
Sunamun. Yeah. You're like a Boom.
Well, I'm sorry. All right, I'm just a little bit too much like The Rock. By the way, is that like an actual language that he's speaking in the beginning?
I couldn't fucking tell you. Probably not.
I don't
If I
know.
if
I was trying to look it up because I think it would be so funny if that was just totally mumbo jumbo. Like it didn't mean anything,
yeah, they were just like just spout some gibberish, bro, and that was just what
Yeah.
came out. But yeah, so that would be the only world in which I could see like maybe they could make another one work. But I would be firmly in your camp as well, where I would be like, just let's just let this franchise die.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I
we
mean,
got
you almost have me. You almost have me buying a ticket to that movie.
there we go. So maybe a little bit more workshopping, and maybe we've got Jim's $15 for a good Friday night showing. Who knows? We'll have to workshop it a little bit. But all right, let's move on now, as always, to the thing that we love to discuss so much, and that is, will this list make it another week, or will it fold under the pressure of Jim trying to figure out where this movie is going to land on the list? And
No,
we will get now. Yeah, go
I
on.
feel pretty I feel pretty good about this week. I feel pretty good
Do
about
you?
this
You
week
feel
going
pretty
into it.
confident,
I'm
especially
less
after
nervous.
now. All right, so here's my question then to you before we fully go into this.
Yeah.
What what were you expecting from me going into this? Did you expect me to harp on this movie as much as I ended up doing?
Not even close. I thought you were gonna like it so much more than it sounds like you did.
So has that so I'm it's interesting to hear that you're still confident though about the score, considering that now you
Yeah. I feel much more comfortable just giving it the score that I feel is correct. And I'm a lot less worried about how your score is gonna affect where it lands on this list. Let me put it that way.
that's fair. All right. So having said all that, then Jim, let me hear it. Final rating and thoughts for The Mummy Returns.
I'm gonna give it a really high score, dude. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. That's one of the highest scores
Holy
I've given it.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
fucking
that's one of the
high.
highest scores I've given.
I don't think I've seen you go over three since like fucking Gladiator. My lord.
Yeah, dude. I like this movie a lot. I'm 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. All right. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I guess so it is going to end up landing on itself somewhere in the middle of the pack where we expect it to be because I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 5.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Yes,
I
that's exactly what I had you pegged for. That's why I was
did you,
confident.
Andrew? That's why you were confident in it. Yeah. And I mean, and I get why somebody wouldn't enjoy this to a 4-star level. I totally don't knock you for enjoying it to that level. I completely understand. For me, at the end of the day, I just can't get past the glaring issues that I have with it solely because of the first movie. So for me, it's going to be a 2. So with a 2 for me and 4 from you that gives it an overall score of 6 out of 10, and I can live with that. I think that's
Yeah.
yeah, I can live with that.
Yeah,
That
because
sounds that's fair.
I'm kind of in the opposite boat of you, which is that I can see why somebody would give this a lower score and why somebody might not enjoy it as much as I did, which to me means like in the 6 range is a really perfect spot for it to end up.
Yeah, and the 6 range puts it's now tied with Star Wars Episode One: The Phantom Menace, and those two sixes sit right behind Armageddon with a 6.5, and just ahead of X-Men with 5.5. So I think
Yeah,
that's solid.
it's living right where it ought to be in my
Yeah,
book. Yeah.
yeah, that ended up working out splendidly. And it is funny, we talked about it last week, how we always end up we're very for very few movies do we align properly on the same score. We always find a way of settling it where it needs to be, where like one week I'll be really high on something and you'll be more reserved, and then the next week you'll be high and I'm more reserved. So it's these movies are so far always ending up where they seem to have to be. So the list is good. The list is good right now.
It's made it after that Rugrats 4, it's made it much further than I thought it would. There's still the huge problem that the floor is way too high, but but so far so good.
Yeah, so far it's really working for us. And despite my reservations about the Mummy, I can live with its spot where it is right now. I'm totally okay with that 6 out of 10. So that's solid right there. And we can't give our sweet guess setup for next week now because you already know the movie because we talked about it already.
Yeah, so
Bastard.
let's use this time. I thought about something we were talking about last week, and I realized that you were so right, and I was making it way more complicated than it needed to be.
Oh,
Um, when we have a tie, let's just figure it out right then.
that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, and then because then the way you can do it is if you have a tie where like multiple things are tied at 6, you just do a lightning round where it climbs the list,
Where
and
we
then
just do the
eventually it
list.
stops climbing. Yeah,
Jim, beautiful. Glad you just said that. Let
yeah, you were
us
so right, dude. I'm not always the brightest guy in the bunch.
It's all right. We made it. We made however we made it. We made it there. So
Yeah,
we
so
have
let's
two
let's
movies
clean up
now. Actually, no,
Castaway.
we have 3 movies right now that are all in like a doubled up spot. So we can quickly lightning round those right now. So first,
Yeah.
right there is How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Castaway both sit at a 7.
All right, I'm
So
gonna
which
I'm gonna
one do you
take
think?
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
You think How the Grinch Stole Christmas should be above?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Oh wow. Okay, I wasn't expecting that.
I would agree with that.
So,
Oh no, we
and
can.
then we don't necessarily need to agree to move it. We can just debate a little bit whenever we get up to this part.
Sure, yeah, because I like how we quickly jumped onto the lightning round, assuming that we would like both say the
Yeah,
same thing
right. Then it
three
would just we'd
times
all be like, "Yep, that's exactly right, and that's exactly where it should land." Everyone
without,
agrees.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because like, what if we each say a different one? Like, how do we decide? But okay, yeah, we'll do like a little bit of. All right, so now for the next one, then we have Star Wars Episode One: The Phantom Menace and The Mummy Returns, both sitting at 6.
That's so tough, dude. You
That's
go first on that one.
I think Phantom Menace should stay just ahead.
Yeah, you didn't like it very much. What was the other one that they're tied with?
Which one? That.
Is
Those are
it
the only.
just those two movies?
Yeah, those are the only two tied for 6.
Oh man, that's tough. I'm gonna
Is it?
take
Is it killing you?
yeah, I'm with you on the Phantom Menace. I'm with you on the Phantom Menace. That's I
Okay.
think that's right.
Okay. And then our last one is tied with 5 out of 10 is Pokemon the movie and Scary Movie.
Pokemon the movie, not even close in my book.
I honestly could go either way, so it doesn't. I'm fine with Pokemon staying in the top spot.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't
So
really
we
have a
we
I don't
agreed.
really have a dog in the fight for either of those ones, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we agreed if maybe a little begrudgingly on some of them. We agreed on all these.
So far, so good. It'll be interesting as we deep dive in and you're getting like a lot more of them. But I'm good on this one right now. I think so far this is okay.
Yeah, so far so good. It's
So
it's
far,
board it's bordering on not being good at all, but it's so far it's still afloat.
so far We're okay. However many episodes into this bitch now, 13 now, and it's still going strong. So we'll hold
God,
on to that.
is
I
it
think
that
so.
many? Wow.
Yes. Look at us go, really chugging along. But all right, that will do it for all of us here at Front Row Cinema in this episode. No guessing for Jim because we already spoiled it. Next week's episode, we're diving into that lovable green ogre. What are you doing in my swamp? How'd you like my Shrek? Is that pretty good?
It was pretty good. Yeah, not the best, but
I don't
no,
want to
I'm
scream.
just
I don't need to scream it right now and wake Heather up with a
yeah,
really
no,
hard Irish brogue.
I'm just screwing with you, dude. It was pretty good. I
No,
liked
no.
it.
Thank you, thank you. I do it for the people. But yeah, so join us next week as we dive into that great old grand animated classic, Shrek, and we will see you all there next week. Jim, do you have anything to leave the people with this week?
Get out of here! Just get out of here!
All right, fine, man. I'll go. Jesus, this is 2 weeks in a row. You're just telling me to fuck off. But yes, we will do that. We're gonna get out of here, everyone. Until the next adventure, as always, we'll see you at the movies.